You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Thursday show finishing reviewing the top developments in agricultural law and taxation in 2023 with K-State and Washburn law professor Roger McEowen. Roger, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Roger, today discussing number 1, 2, and 3 from those top developments. And first, starting with number 3, which you decided was California's Proposition 12.
Yeah, we're down to the top 3 developments as I see it. And, of course, this is how I see these developments in terms of their impact on the agricultural sector as a whole and farmers and ranchers in particular. At 3, I've got this Proposition 12 in California, and this went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court with a decision in 2023 that probably most listeners have heard about by now. But what Proposition 12 was California coming up with a law that says that you cannot sell pork products in the state of California. And actually, it was a little bit broader than that, but pork is what the Supreme Court opinion addressed. You can't sell pork products in the state of California unless those pork products you can certify were raised in accordance with California standards. And basically, that had to do with the farrowing of the hogs and the raising of the piglets and the birthing in pens where the sow could get up and turn around and not touch the sides. Well, that's not the way they're produced in the major hog-producing states such as Iowa and North Carolina, and there's reasons for that. And California didn't like that. They thought that that was cruel and inhumane, and so they said, you can't have access to our market if you don't raise the hogs in the manner that we want you to. Now, one of the issues with that is California doesn't raise hogs. They have less than 1% of the pork production in the United States. Very, very small. It's a fraction of 1%. But they consume about 14% of pork products in the country. So it's a very important market to have access to if you're a hog producer.
And what came from this case for hog producers?
Well, this was a challenge couched under the Commerce Clause, and more specifically the Dormant Commerce Clause of the Constitution, which in essence is designed to prevent states from cannibalizing, so to speak, the economic activity of other states. And so if Congress hasn't specified a certain area that of the law that they're going to regulate, then it's up to the states to do that. And the Dormant Commerce Clause, while not in the Constitution, is a constitutional doctrine that says, well, you can't have economic piracy, so to speak, of activities of other states. And there are some detailed thresholds and rules that the court has outlined in determining whether a case violates the so-called Dormant Commerce Clause, with several judges not even believing the Dormant Commerce Clause exists. So when you bring a Dormant Commerce Clause case and it gets to the U.S. Supreme Court, you have a tough row to hoe because you've got 2 or 3 justices that right off the bat don't even believe that the concept exists. And you have to allege purposeful discrimination, in this instance by California. And the pork producers that brought the case didn't allege that. They relied on what we call the extraterritorial doctrine, with the result that the court, because they weren't alleging price discrimination, they were just saying, well, this has an extraterritorial effect. There's no effect on California. The entire effect of the law is economically on other states and people in other states. And the court said, look, you're not alleging price discrimination. You're not alleging purposeful discrimination. You're just arguing the effect, and we're not going to adopt a per se rule under the Dormant Commerce Clause that would cause us to strike down state legislation that only has an impact beyond the state's borders. And the court said that was such a bad argument that it, quote, faltered out of the gate, end quote. That's a pretty tough decision. And in fact, Justice Kavanaugh wrote separately, and he criticized the lawyers that brought the case, saying that, quote, it appears, therefore, that properly pled Dormant Commerce Clause challenges to laws like California's Proposition 12, or even Proposition 12 itself, could succeed in the future, or at least survive past the motion to dismiss stage, end quote. So what he's saying here is, look, if you bring a properly pled case, we might be able to hear it, but the court dismissed the case on procedural grounds, but then went ahead to write some various opinions explaining the Dormant Commerce Clause and Commerce Clause doctrine. But this one really raises some concerns in the ag industry, particularly in the pork industry.
Roger, the second top development, in your opinion, for ag law and taxation in 2023, revolving around foreign ownership of agricultural land.
Yeah, this was a really hot issue in various state legislatures in 2023, and even there was talk in the Congress about doing something. There were a number of high-profile issues that occurred in late 22 into 2023 that involved, in particular, China. And China is on our foreign adversary list. And so it really raised the concern at the state level as to the protection of food supply and the ownership of agricultural land needing to be in hands of people that are loyal to the United States. So it's a food security type issue and a food supply issue. And there are about a dozen states in 2023 that enacted laws, one way or the other, restricting foreign ownership. But I'd say probably the two most prominent are Florida and Arkansas. The Florida statute was challenged constitutionally, and it upheld that challenge. And we have seen numerous states, in addition to those dozen or so states that enacted laws, propose legislation. So about half the states in 2023, it was on the radar, either in terms of enacted or proposed legislation, and that's going to continue in 2024.
Roger, as we round out your top developments in agricultural law and taxation, we're ready to talk about number one. And Roger, what is your number one development for 2023?
Yeah, that's the Sackett opinion at the U.S. Supreme Court that was decided on May 25, or the opinion was released on May 25, involving waters of the United States and what is a wetland under the Clean Water Act over which the EPA has jurisdiction. The case itself did not involve an agricultural set of facts. It was a couple in northern Idaho that purchased a lot, a 6/10 of an acre lot, in 2004 that they wanted to build their home on, but it was near numerous wetlands, and the water from those wetlands flowed from a tributary to a creek and eventually ran into a lake about 100 yards from their lot. Now, the lake, Priest Lake, is a navigable water of the United States. It is a WOTUS, subject to the Clean Water Act. And so EPA said that their lot was also a wetland, subject to, it was a navigable water of the United States, in other words, a jurisdictional wetland. But the court disagreed with that unanimously. They said, no, it is not, and not subject to the EPA jurisdiction. And all of the justices rejected what's known as the significant nexus test when determining whether the federal EPA and the Corps of Engineers has regulatory authority over wetlands. So they all rejected that test. They didn't all agree on what the proper test is, but a majority of them said that you have to have a continuous surface connection from a wet area to an actual navigable water of the United States, and that was not present in this case. So we got a unanimous rejection of the old test of significant nexus, and we got a new test in terms of continuous surface flow, and agriculture is pretty happy about that one.
So now what does the EPA and Corps have to do to be able to have jurisdiction over water?
Well, they rewrote their rule. Remember what happened in late 22 and was finalized in early 23 before the court's opinion came out. The EPA wrote a new rule, basically going back before the Trump administration to the old Obama-era rule, and the court said that rule's not good. So the federal agencies had to rewrite their rule. They did in 2023. That immediately was challenged by numerous states, and so here we go with continued litigation on exactly what the rule should look like.
So, Roger, as we're thinking about water, something really important to agriculture, really what do you see with this Waters of the United States case moving forward?
Well, we'll have to watch the litigation against the agencies on the new rule. Some in agriculture believe that it's not completely in line with what the Supreme Court said. A couple of states are claiming that the rule violates the supremacy clause of the Constitution. They're overriding state rights. Texas is one of those states. But I think that's where the focus is going to be moving forward on this in terms of what the courts will say as to whether the new rule actually complies with what the Supreme Court has said.
Roger, if someone would like to check out all of your top developments in agricultural law and taxation in 2023, where can they do that?
They can find that on my blog, and that's washburnlaw.edu/WALTR, as well as over on the Ag Manager website at K-State.
Roger, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some top developments in agricultural law and taxation in 2023.
Thank you very much.
That was Kansas State University and Washburn law professor Roger McEowen, and he was discussing his top 3 developments in agricultural law and taxation in 2023. If you'd like to see his top 10 list and the honorable mentions, you can read about them by going to his website, washburnlaw.edu/WALTR, or you can also find it on the Agricultural Economics Department website here at K-State at agmanager.info. If you'd rather give them a listen, we've covered his top 10 as well as the honorable mentions, and you can listen to those by going to past podcast episodes of Agriculture Today. You can find those on your favorite podcast streaming platform or by going to agtoday.net. And also on agtoday.net will be today's show notes, where I will put links to all of these resources if you'd like to find out more information.